I'm Kimberly Washburn, Curator of Education at the Florence County Museum. Welcome to October's Family Day at Home. Today we're going to be working together to create painted paper owl collages. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to create yours. The first thing you need to do is gather some supplies from your Family Day at Home kit. You're going to need your black construction paper, your 3 pieces of painted papers, your brush applicator, your sticky back foam, your glue cup, your brown and orange paint cups, your feather template, your sponge, and your egg carton owl eyes. You'll also need to gather a few things from around the house. You're going to need a pencil, some scissors, and it would be helpful to have a damp paper towel nearby so that you can wipe your fingers off, because this might be a little bit messy. So we're going to start out today by painting our owl eyes, and then while those dry, we'll assemble the rest of our owl. So your owl eyes already have white paint on the inside of them, but we're going to go ahead and paint this to be an owl's beak and ears, and go ahead and paint the outside of, or the back side of the feathers, or the ears, so that they look like feathers. So we're going to be using our sponge and our little brush applicator to apply paint. I find it easiest to use the sponge for the brown paint and the applicator for the orange paint. You could use the sponge for both or the applicator for both. You might just have to wash it off in between. So I'm just going to dip my sponge in the paint, and I'm just going to carefully apply that to the back of the egg carton. You might get a little bit on your fingers, and I just like to dab with the sponge. The sponge helps get down in all the little crevices of texture that is on the egg carton. So just going to continue to paint here. Get that all the way around. You don't need to do this inside of the beak part. That's not necessary. Nobody will see that, so you don't have to get there. It is a good idea to get all around the back of the eyes, because that will be visible. Okay. I'm also going to add just a little bit of brown paint to the tips of the ears. If you're doing this on a table surface, make sure that you lay down some paper or something to protect your table surface. Old newspaper works great for that. Just going to blot that in, and now his ears are nice and brown. If you want to kind of dab around the edges of your egg carton, you can, leaving it nice and white in there where the eyes are. Okay, I might dab right here in the center too, just to give it a little definition. Okay, so I'm all done with the sponge and the brown. I'm going to just wipe my fingers off a little. And I'm going to go ahead and paint the beak orange. I'm going to use my applicator for that. And I'm just going to paint the orange paint on the beak of the owl. I'm going to hold it until I am out of spaces to hold it, and then I can just pick them up. This is the same orange paint that you're using for your pumpkin sculpture, so you should have enough paint for both. It doesn't take much orange paint here. I'm just going to continue painting his beak. I want to make sure to cover up all of that brown color of the egg carton. I don't want to see any of that. Almost there, just one more side to paint. Okay. All right. So this is all painted and ready to dry. So you can kind of see what it'll look like. I'm going to set this on my paper, slide this paper out of the way so that I can work on the body of my owl. Okay, the next step is to start to create the body of our owl. We're going to be using our black construction paper as our background sheet of paper, and I like to use this going up and down or portrait orientation. And the next thing I'm going to do is prepare to cut out feathers for my owl. Now, I've cut them out ahead of time, but all of these papers are going to be used to create feathers. So I like the brown paper to be the main body of my owl, and the white and the orange to sort of be accent colors, but you could do it any way you want. If you want the white paper to be the main color of your owl, you can do that as well. I want to show you the sort of quickest and easiest way to cut out feathers, and that is to create an accordion fold. And I like to just create it about the size of my little template here. Might need to be a little bigger. And an accordion fold is where you just fold in one direction, you flip it over, fold in another direction, flip it over, fold and flip. All right, and I got a little bit left over here, but I'm not gonna add that. I'm not gonna fold that. Now, what I'm gonna do now is just trace my template. You don't have to use the template. If you would prefer to just create your own wing shape, you can do that. But right here, I'm just going to trace my template a couple of times. Just like that. So now I have just two template shapes. There's my accordion fold. I'm going to leave it folded, and I'm just going to cut out that template through all the layers of the paper. If this is tricky, if you're having a hard time getting through all the layers of the paper, ask a nearby grown-up to help you with the cutting. Or you could cut one at a time out. It would just take a very long time to cut enough feathers for your owl. All right. So don't worry if it's not the perfect shape that you cut out. You won't really be able to tell that. So by just cutting once, I've been able to cut 5 feathers at a time. And I did it twice, so I've got 10 white feathers here, just with a really small amount of time. Okay, I am going to cut just a few yellow ones as well as an accent. If you don't want to use the template, you could just sort of freehand cut like that. Like that. And now I have some, I'm getting paint everywhere. Now I have some feathers cut out. I just sort of freehanded. Okay. Now I'm going to use my pencil just to sort of trace the general area that I'm going to be putting the feathers in for my owl. So I want to make sort of a football shape and then an oval for the head. So sort of a football shape for the body and then an oval for the head. Now I'm going to do that by starting about a third of the way down my paper. So if I were to divide my paper into 3s, then I would go maybe 1/3 here, 1/3 here. So I'm going to start at this top area. And I'm just going to create sort of a football shape. I'm not going to put a point on it quite as much as a football. So I just made one little half circle. I'm going to flip my paper over because that's easier for me. And create another little half circle. So it's sort of an oval, maybe a little more rounded than a football. Mine doesn't come quite up to a point at the top. Then I'm going to create a little oval for his head, just like that. And I'm not even going to erase those lines because I'm getting ready to cover up all of that. This just gives me an idea of where I'm going to be putting my feathers. Now right here, I have my glue. This is the same glue that we use for our pumpkin sculpture. So you should have enough of that left over. And you're going to want to wash off your applicator, so that's not your applicator brush, so that it's nice and clean. And you're just going to start gluing. Now I like to put just a couple little dots of glue on my feathers. And I'm just going to bring those down like this, sort of overlapping them. Now you may want to, if you're doing a lot of overlapping, you may want to kind of start in the center of your owl and work your way out. Or you could do it the opposite. You could work on the outside and work your way in. Since I've already started on the outside, that's what I'm going to do. Just starting on the outside, adding my feathers. You'll notice that I'm overlapping them, but I'm not completely covering the one above it. I'm just coming down and sort of overlapping the edges. And I do want the edge of my feathers to cover up my pencil marks. So make sure you cover those. If you had pencil marks, then cover those up. And these are all feathers I cut ahead of time, just out of the same papers that you have. The good thing about, as you're putting them down, you can sort of rearrange them a little. The glue doesn't dry so fast that you can't move them around a little if you decide you want to. And next I want to maybe add just a few accent feathers. Maybe I want to add a few orange in here. Again, I'm overlapping a little, but I'm not covering up everything I've already done. Your accent feathers, you can make it symmetrical so that one side is the same as the other side, or you could make them asymmetrical, which means that they don't match from side to side. Either way is fine, because you're owl. So I'm just going to keep on adding feathers. Remember, I'm working from the outside in, so the feathers that are in the center are going to look like they're kind of on top. Like that. I'm going to add just a few more white feathers here. And here. And maybe a few right up here, maybe 3 up at the top. And then I can move on to the feathers on his head. Those little orange accent feathers just give a little bit of color peeking through, which is fun. Okay. So there's the body of my owl. All his feathers are glued down. You can also arrange the feathers, like if I wanted to practice, for example, I'm not sure how I want my feathers to go, then I could arrange them just like this, and then come back and glue them down. So maybe I know I want some accents, but I'm not sure where I want them to be. Then check it out like that, and then come back and glue it down. Okay, so these are the feathers of my owl. I've created the body of my owl, and now I'm ready to create his face, or add his face. This is pretty dry now, maybe a little damp still, but I'm going to take it and add some glue just to the very, very back of his eyes, just to where this is going to contact the paper. Just like that. And then I'm going to just stick that straight down. Eyes. I can press right in there. That white paint's dry because it was already painted when you got it, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to use my black foam pieces just to cut out some little pupils for the inside of his eyes. You could trace a circle with something like maybe a penny or a dime, but I'm just sort of freeform cutting these. This is sticky back foam, so you don't need to use any glue on this. You just peel that paper off of the back and you stick it right down into that eye. So. Just like that. Gives him some life. There you go. And if you have some paint, you can add some extra touches. If you want to add feet onto your owl, you can just use your applicator. You can do this in orange or in the brown paint, or maybe a combination of both. Just sort of painting some little feet on your owl, like so. You could even paint a little branch for him to sit on, the brown. So I might add a little tree branch just kind of coming off the side there that he's sitting on. You have created a painted paper owl collage. We hope you enjoy this project. Have a great day.